All right, so if we want to go ahead and get started, if we want to do introductions, I'll start. I'm Georgette Rogers, Circulation Supervisor, Liberty Lake Library.
Hi, I'm Martha. I am with Ramapo Catskill Library System, and we are migrating to Koha next year. So I'm just kind of here as, listen and take it in a little bit and start to get used to it.
Terrific, and we'll certainly help you out wherever we can.
Thank you.
I'm Avery Clements. I do technical support with CLAMS. It's a Cape Libraries automated materials sharing in Massachusetts. And we migrated to Koha in February, so we're still a little new.
Wow.
Hi, I'm Chanel Wheeler from the Yavapai Library Network in Arizona. We will be going live on Koha in June. So like Martha, I'm just here to absorb.
Okay.
I'm Jason Robb. I'm the Seek and Find Coordinator at the Southeast Kansas Library System, and we've been on Koha since 2008.
I'm Rebecca Coert. I am with Arlington Public Library in Virginia, and we have been on Koha since June of 2020. Just happily moved to 2211.
Okay, yeah. We've been on since 2012. So Martha, Chanel, since you're new, do you have any questions? Anything we can help with?
I don't know enough to know what I don't know.
I think we've all been in that situation.
Yes, we have.
And that's exactly right. I don't know what I don't know. So it's just the first, jumping in and maybe hear some new terms, some different ideas, and just kind of hopefully slowly let it absorb into the brain. So I don't have anything in particular. Thank you, though.
I would ask, are there online resources that you would recommend for getting up to speed?
Probably just the YouTube videos that Bywater does. They're some of the best. They do some training videos, and they do the What's New webinars. And so you can just go on YouTube and do that.
Oh, so there's actual training, like how to do Circ videos there. Okay, I haven't found those yet.
There are some. It's mostly kind of how it's set up and how it works, but I'm sure any of us can probably guide you through how to do Circ.
Okay, I'll go dig around YouTube some more.
Okay.
And there is an archive of these meetings on YouTube on our koha-US's YouTube channel. We also have a page this is a page on the koha-US website dedicated to resources for circulation, and some of those videos from Bywater are there. So those two video thumbnails are playlists, so you can click on those and see what we've curated so far.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah, and circulation has some little nuances, but they're, I'm finding this newer version. I don't know about Jason or the others that have been on it for a while. I'm actually liking this version better than I have of the other Circs. I find it's a little bit easier, a little bit friendlier to use. I don't like that the writing is about this big, so it's a little harder for my old eyes to see. But other than that, it's I actually kind of like this one a little easier. You just scan it, pulls all the information there, and you can edit and do everything from circulation. If you need to edit a patron, got the the checkout, the renewal option right there. I mean, everything is all kind of right there together. So I like it. I like this version better.
Yeah, and something we've always liked about koha circulation is there's like 10 ways to do everything,
Yes,
and everybody kind of finds their own way to do it. But it's all fairly intuitive. I mean, like there's if you've used a website before, you can probably figure out koha.
Yeah, yeah. You basically click on circulation and it takes you right to checkout. And you get your checkout, your patrons, your renewal, your search catalog. You've got it all kind of right there together. So you just the one thing I don't like is that it doesn't always. I can't always tell if it's populated. The cursor is populated in the white box, so you just kind of have to watch the screen closely, to make sure. But other than that, yeah, it's really. I find it easy to use myself. Like Jason said, there's about 10 different ways you can click on circulation. You can click on, you can go up to the koha in the corner, the left-hand corner, and drop down and get a, page of, circulation, renew, tools. I mean, all the different things that you would need. So lots of different ways.
Our staff will really appreciate that because Symphony isn't very intuitive.
Yeah, this one does seem to be. I have to admit, I've not always been a fan of koha, but this version is much better. I'm happier with this, and I haven't heard quite as much complaints from the staff that they, usually they say, "Oh, I don't like this upgrade. I don't like this. It doesn't do this. It doesn't do that." I actually have not heard that at all with this newest version. So it was a nice smooth transition, and it just, the only difference was it was bigger. The screen was a little bit bigger before, and that's what I heard the most was, well, it got a little smaller and it's harder to see. So we have one staff that makes the screen, she enlarges the screen to about 120 so she can kind of see everything. So
that is one of the nice things about having koha in a browser is that you can expand the screen. We used to have a proprietary ILS and you couldn't do anything for the display. So it was like,
right.
Even if you made your display bigger, from the system preference, it would never actually work.
Right.
And I've been teaching everyone control click, control clicker wheel, spinner wheel. I'm like, make it bigger, make it smaller, make it bigger, make it smaller. Do whatever you need.
Right. And one thing we did, and I didn't do, but I'm part of a consortium in Idaho, and our tech team there customized with our colors that kind of went with the theme of our consortia, which is kind of more blues and grays and that. And so it's customizable, which is really nice. So yeah, you can make it colors, so make it a little easier for you to read. We did find that when he customized it, some of the pop-ups were a little harder to read because the boxes were in red and the words were like in green or something. And we said, no, got to go back to black. We can't read it. And sometimes it's just using it to find out, does that work? And if not, then you go back and change it. And I know nothing about coding, so I can't answer any of those questions, but hopefully your tech guy can do that. But I do like that for that respect.
Yeah, we have staff that move between multiple branches, so we actually changed our menu bar to change color based on what branch they're at.
Cool.
So they can tell if they're logged in as the central branch or another branch. It was just a small tweak that made a huge difference.
Right. Yeah, it's really nice. So you can definitely customize it.
Yeah, someone famous once said that koha is infinitely configurable.
Yeah.
That's a Fred King quote.
Is that?
Yeah.
Why am I not surprised?
Yeah, I've been working on getting up to speed in jQuery so I can do all the cool stuff that I see on those Thursday videos.
Yeah, the Thursday videos, Christopher that does that with George. Christopher is our tech guy from Coeur d'Alene. So he's the one that excuse me, like I said, I'm sorry, I'm recovering from an asthma attack. He's the one that customized it for our consortium. So
Chanel, are you going to be supported or are you unsupported?
We are supported. but I'm the systems librarian, so the expectation is that I can do anything and everything. And because we're a consortium, all the requests come through me, so I'm the first line of support, and then only if I'm stuck would I then go to Bywater.
I was going to say I have a lot of luck with getting stuck and then going to Bywater. So, you know, if you do, don't hesitate to ask them or ask the group. You know, we often run into things and like, oh, how do I do this? And it was a system preference this week that I didn't know about. So there you go. Sometimes you just don't know the answer, but they will.
Mm-hmm. I will say I had to work with Bywater. Normally I work with Christopher, or we have 3 tech people. But I was working on a cash register, trying to get cash register connected to Koha, and we had a problem. And so I was working with Envisionware, and they finally told me just call Bywater. And I worked directly with one person from Bywater. They worked with Envisionware. We got everything going. So they were great. They're spot on. You need help, they're there.
Yeah, we've had Aspen for about a year or so now, so that has worked out really well. I mean, I'm sure that influenced us to go with Bywater.
Yes, we recently moved to Aspen Discovery, and we had a ton of questions. And Bywater has been fabulous, and I know that was a huge piece of the puzzle when we were trying to figure out who we're gonna go with. So Bywater has been wonderful.
Yeah, they've been very good.
Can I ask, this is Eileen from the CLAMS consortium. We're pretty new to Koha and Aspen. What does YLN, I missed the beginning of the meeting. What does YLN stand for?
Yavapai Library Network. We're a consortium of 59 multi-type libraries. So we have K-12s, publics, academics, and specials.
Oh, wow. And you're moving from
Symphony.
Cersei Dynex?
Yes.
Okay. We've had an interesting situation. We're a consortium and we do centralized cataloging, which everybody is probably sick of hearing me say, but we're having an issue with permissions in circulation. Circ staff want to be able to change a status, which they should be able to change to missing or, you know, lost. So I think there's a limited permissions to subfields permission or something. So now what started happening is we still have generic Circ logins. I know, we still have those. So people are cataloging and doing serials work and everything in the generic Circ login now because they can. And we don't want them to do that. So obviously they're making a lot of mistakes because we don't know who's doing it at the libraries, but also they may not have had the training. Mm-hmm. Their director may have said, just add these serial issues while you're working the desk. So does anyone know about that permission in circulation where Circ staff would be able to change a fixed field to lost or build, but they wouldn't be able to add a new item record?
I know that we just ask when we set up a new staff member, we just talk to the tech, we put in a ticket for our tech team and we say, we have this staff person and they need these permissions, they need to be able to do this. And then they're able to do that. Now I do have 1 or 2 staff members that can't access reports because they don't necessarily need to. I can access everything. I'm the Circ supervisor. But we have some staff that, we have one of our clerks who doesn't access cataloging because she doesn't catalog. So you can customize the permissions.
I guess my real question, sorry, just while I have this thought. My real question is, do you allow generic Circ logins?
We only have one, and that is for one of our volunteers who pulls our holds. So she logs in, runs the report, checks them in to trigger the holds, and then she signs out. But we don't have generic here at our branch. We do not have generic logs.
We're thinking we may want to get rid of them because now we have people cataloging and everything using the generic. And if there's an issue with the cataloging, we don't know who did it. So we're asking people, please don't catalog with your generic Circ login or add serials. This is nothing new. It's what we had in the last system. We used to be on innovative. You know, you used your cataloging for cataloging and your serials, or the individual has the permissions they need if they do both. But now, because they can, because the permissions are not granular enough in Koha, we have people adding serials while they're using the generic login. So we've told them not to do it, but we're thinking of moving away from generic. But I know there's going to be a big backlash. Pushback. Yes, thank you. A pushback on that, or backlash, because they've always had a generic Circ login, because people might be on for 2 hours and then so they don't want to bother logging out and logging back in. So anyway, we're trying to limit the generic Circ logins to only be able to change status or just eventually get rid of them. But our issue is some of our libraries, we're on Cape Cod and the islands of Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, and some of our libraries rely on volunteers on the Circ desk. Don't get me started on that. But some of them limit their volunteers to calling about holes or shelving, but there's others that have volunteers who come and go on the Circ desk, actually accessing patron data and stuff like that. So it's a nightmare.
So I did want to share, I can share my screen here for, let's see, if you've got a generic Circ account that doesn't have any cataloging permissions. So this looks weird and buggy, but this one doesn't have any cataloging permissions. They can still.
Jason, it's all black. It just says Jason is sharing screen.
Well, where did the thing go?
Actually, it's the edit items permission. That's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Edit items. We want them to be able to edit the status.
I totally lost everything.
Huh, weird.
My Zoom controls are gone.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you look frozen too on my end.
All right, I'll be right back.
But I think for the system preference, if you edit an item, it's editing any field, not specific. It's not specific to a field. It's the whole record.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
For us, we have specific catalogers that do all that, fields and all that. However, our Circ staff, if they need to make an item lost or damaged, we do it right in the bibliographic record. And so we go to bibliographic record to the status, we make it lost or damaged and go from there. So we don't ever touch the record per se. We just touch that bibliographic part of it.
Oh, yeah, that's a bit different.
To us, we don't let them touch the bib records.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry, my dogs have started howling to the moon. I hope you can't hear them. But yeah, so we want them to be able to do an on-the-fly record. If something they want to check out something that's not cataloged. But we don't want them to be adding new serial items. So
you just take that cataloging permission away from the Circ, the generic Circ, if they're going to use that.
And they're also deleting items when they should.
Yeah, you just take that away.
Yeah, but then can you allow them to edit? We took everything away from them, and the directors kicked up a stink, seemingly, that they want to be able to mark the items missing and all that. So
that's what I was trying to show you. Let me see if I can break things again.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Please and thank you.
Okay.
There you go. Yep. Now we got you.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got you.
I don't know what that was about. Okay. So this account doesn't have cataloging permissions. You can see there's no edit item links here. If I go into it, this is funky, but again, can't edit the items. But you can click on the barcode and come to this screen and mark statuses.
That's where
Oh.
we go. That's what we do. That's what I was saying. That's exactly how we do it.
Okay, so what is this setting? We want them to be able to do this.
So they should be able to do that even without those permissions.
Without the editing fields permission. Okay.
Right.
Well, we've
this
one
is like
person.
a generic Circ
Yeah, we've
account.
one person from systems here, Avery. Take note because this doesn't mean that much to me. So they don't need the editing items permission. They can just mark their own item by clicking on the barcode. Okay.
Right. That's what I meant by the bib record right there. We call that the bib record.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, there's a terminology confusion for us. We call the bib the one that has the author title, you know, the master record or bib record, and then we call these item records or holdings records.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
This is
Yeah,
the
that's what I
item
call 'em.
details screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's actually 3 options here. I've got damage status hidden. So you can do lost, withdrawn, and damaged. You can't do not for loan from the screen, but the other 3 you can.
Okay. Well, despite the backlash, thank you for
Yeah.
correcting me on that. We're going to do this, Avery. We're going to get rid of that editing items thing
Yeah.
and
It's
tell them
very
to click on the barcode because they're deleting items and everything. And we don't know who on earth is the generic Circ at Hyannis. We don't know who that person is. So our systems manager, Avery's manager, wants to get rid of generic Circ logins, but I was hoping I wouldn't have to deal with that in my lifetime because there's going to be. Whew. Has anyone done that? Got rid of Circ logins?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
How did
Yeah,
that
we
go?
did. We switched from having generic logins to having individual logins when we switched to Koha. And so now, and we actually have, I think, I want to say 16 different, maybe 12, 16 different permission settings, so that if a person is in cataloging, but they're not, let's say, like the super cataloger, they have some permissions. So we've actually set up using the patron lists. And so we can use the batch patron permissions modifier plugin. I think that's what it's called. So that if you have a batch of people, let's say like 200 circulation people, and you want to change one system preference and you want to do it all at once, you can just use the plugin to change the preferences for them.
That's not
so.
We have been having some lively discussions with Bywater since we migrated at the end of February about the missing link in Koha, which I know this is not a cataloging SIG, but there's a whole set of permissions that we had in Sierra of mid-level cataloging that is missing in Koha. And anytime anyone asks us for a reference, which they have, we're honest about that you know, we need this missing component of. That's why I'm interested that you mentioned mid-level, or you mentioned cataloging permissions. We find there's we allow our libraries to enter short records so they can circulate. So it has a connection to circulation. So, you know, we don't want them sending them to us for cataloging. As I said, we don't allow any of our libraries to catalog. So we allow them to enter brief mark records, mini marks, and attach their barcoded item so they can circulate the thing without sending the physical item to us. Because we can get most of our full bib records from OCLC just based on the information they add to the system. But we also want them to be able to go back and edit those mini records if they've made a mistake. So there's a whole batch of frameworks we can't use in Koha. So we're working with Bywater on, I think we might finally be getting somewhere with them that, you know, the libraries would be able to edit their brief mark, but not an OCLC mark record. So that's where we're coming from, just for Chanel's information. So I don't know how it was in Circ, because we've never used them, although we looked at them when we were migrating systems, but we chose Koha. But circulation in Koha, our staff like it. one great thing that one director shared with us was it's easier to train new staff on Koha Circ than it was on our previous system. And that means a lot to us to hear that, because existing staff, of course, probably didn't want change, and they were used to doing circulation in Sierra. But new staff coming in, they said it's a breeze to train them, that it's user-friendly, it's intuitive. I think Circ is about the best part of Koha.
I think so.
That brings up a question for me, which is, we currently use generic accounts. We have a generic Circ for each library. We have a generic Circ, a generic tech services, and a generic supervisor.
Get rid of them.
Okay, so that works really well for us. Why? What's the really good reasons for moving away? Because the turnover in 59 libraries is a lot.
Well, we used to have a limited. The thing is, correct me if I'm wrong, Avery, to get an individual login to use the system, they have to have an email account. And we use something called SSO, which is, I don't know, Google authentication. Yes, single sign-on, using their Google account, which has, I think we were the first to do that with Google. So that has worked really well. So we want them to take responsibility. We do centralized cataloging. So if we can't recognize who's doing the work, we can't recognize training opportunities. So we want accountability. We want, some of the libraries still do fines, only 7 out of 35, or 6 actually now, it's reduced to 6. So, some of the directors may not want their staff waiving fines. And if it's a generic, we moved away from generic because we want to know who's doing the work. Not that we're doing Big Brother and spying on them, but it's a training opportunity. And our systems manager says it's also to do with security. So if I was to do this again, but we had limited time because we're a tourist destination. So we chose the system in September and we migrated fully by the 27th of February. So it was a limited time. If we weren't a tourist destination, we would have taken longer, but we don't make any changes during the summer because the staff can't cope with it because the population quadruples probably. So I forget what my point was now. Okay, so if I was to do this again and I had a lot of time, I would agree with the systems manager and get rid of all generic logins, except maybe for volunteers.
I'm going to share my screen. Nope, that's not it. Okay, let me figure this out. I want this screen. Why can't I share my screen? Where I want to go isn't where I want. Nope, that's my email. I don't want to share that.
We'll all email you.
Okay, go ahead. I was trying to get to my login. There it is. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how we log in. That's my name and then my password. And then once I log in, then I've got all the permissions because I have I'm the supervisor, so I have all the permissions, but you can limit this as to what you want people to be able to do. But every single person has that login where it said Georgette and then my password. Some people use their name, some people use their library card number. It depends on how you sign in. So we can backtrack whoever did what they did.
So
I do have one.
So logins are tied directly to an email address?
No. We just know what we do is when we get a new staff member, I just contact our tech department and I say we've got a new staff member. Their name is Bob, and I would like Bob's name to be his username, and temporarily we're going to set his password to Bob is new or something. And then Bob goes in and changes his password once he gets logged in. But we just log it in. That's how we do it. Our tech team sets permissions and how it's going to log in. And so it's not tied to an email at all. We don't
Okay.
use email for anything.
Okay.
Ours is, but we're doing this
Yeah.
SSO with,
Okay.
we did this whole project, well, the systems manager did it
Mhm.
with Google. So actually, I'm not sure why we're doing that. Why are we doing SSO, Avery? It's for security purposes, I think.
I mean, I think they just, well, part of their onboarding process is they get a ClamsNet email
Yeah.
through
Mhm.
Google anyway. And then we wanted to move away from the generic logins. So to make it a little bit more of a simple login process, I think there was just the idea of if we could tie it in to their Gmail and they could just log into Gmail and then automatically log into Koha with that, it would make it really easy. And we also did it with Aspen. So Aspen's also got that Google SSO login.
For the staff, yeah.
So
So
I do think there's a downside to it a little bit where people, I think it confuses people a little bit, and then they decide to just do the manual login instead as a generic Circ or something, and then
maybe, yeah.
aren't seeing the permissions they're used to. But I think it's good to decide from the beginning if you want to integrate it with your
Yes.
email or just do the generic, like
Yeah, but I mean,
manual username
yeah,
password thing.
but you could still have individual logins without
Mhm.
tying it to email
Yeah.
as
That's exactly what we do.
Yeah.
Individual login. You
So-
saw my name and then my
yeah.
password, and that's just how we set them up.
We've always had tension with some libraries insisting on using their town library email address, and we want them to use their ClamsNet email for Clams business. Sorry. So, it kind of sorted that out too, because people wouldn't look at their Clams email for ages, and we'd have information on policies or how to do something that they wouldn't see. And there's the whole thing about municipal libraries having things in the public record and all that. So we wanted libraries to use Clams email for Clams business. So this has kind of reinforced that. And also we had an issue with now when a staff member leaves, nobody else can continue using their individual login because you have to verify by Gmail, and usually the Gmail account will be closed down. So it was a whole combination of reasons for us, but you don't have to do that Google thing. But
No.
my advice would be with the generic logins. Years ago, we had a generic cataloging login. We had a generic serials login. So gradually over the years, we've moved it to individual logins, and it's just people take more responsibility when it's their own login. And we're still left with the Circ login. And part of that is me, because I said to the systems manager, Brendan, we're never going to be able to get rid of the Circ generic logins because there's too much turnover, too many, you might hire a Circ person for 8 hours a week and another for, the Circ staff in our library system at the libraries is often patched together by a lot of part-time people. So, but it's the volunteers too. I mean, I think if we continue with generic Circ, we should just have it for volunteers. And then,
that's what
yeah,
we do.
Yeah, and then we had an issue recently where somebody reported an issue to the help desk, and they sent a picture of their monitor, and right on the monitor was pasted the login and password. So, I thought the system staff were going to have. Oh, anyway, so we politely reminded that library and all of the libraries that, for security reasons, this is a web-based system, which our old system was client-based, that they should not be posting logins and passwords right on the screen where any Tom, Dick, or Harry, as my mother used to say, have access. I don't know. People don't take We've had a backlash here too against adding birth dates to patron records because of privacy. And yet they post these things on their monitor about how to log in. I mean, they have cleaning staff and patrons who can see that stuff. So
I have another question. Is it possible for volunteer accounts to lock things down so that all they can do is check in and check out and pay bills, but not be able to actually look up a patron's record?
I don't think so. I think
in
records come with check-in and check-out.
we have ours locked down to check in,
Uh-huh.
and they can't look at patron records. So if they click on a patron that is listed, they can't pull up the record. But
oh,
check out,
They
because
have
you
to
have
see the
to
record.
search for the patron record to find the person to check it out to. Yeah,
Mhm.
you can't check out unless you can access a patron record.
can you expand on that? What you do to check-in? Because
Yeah,
some
so
of our
we have
libraries just have people checking in.
so like I said, we have specific individual logins for each staff member, but we do have volunteers that do check in. And so we have basically locked down all the permissions. They use a generic login. It's just called volunteer, whatever branch they're at. And then all they can do is check in materials. That's it.
What permission is that? Do you know offhand?
No, but I can look it up.
Or system preference? Well, just if you find it, stick it in
Yeah.
chat. Yeah, that
I can look it
sounds
up.
interesting. I mean, I can see check-in being okay for a volunteer. We get bins of material. So that sounds like an interesting option. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, we have volunteers that I have one that checks in, checks out, renews, and then I have one that just pulls our holds and triggers the holds for us in the afternoon because sometimes we're busy enough and we're short enough staffed that they help us out by pulling the holds.
Now, do they have to have
And
access to the patron record to pull the
they
holds?
do not. They do not.
Oh.
They just go into reports and pull the hold, or Circ and pull the hold. So
Oh, I see. They don't check it. They don't do anything else. They just leave it for Circ staff to
they do
go
check
from there.
it in. They do check in, but again, check in just gives you the hold slip with the patron's last name.
Ah.
So yeah, so that's all they do is they pull the holds off the shelf, then they come up, they check them in. So they don't go to check out, they don't touch a patron record, they don't do anything like that. They just check in, it triggers the hold, they print the slip, they put it in the book and they put it on the hold shelf. And our hold slips are such that we have just their last name and the first two of their first name and middle name, and the last four or the last two of their barcode number, just in case they forget their card and you have a name such as mine, which is Rogers. And although I'm the only Georgette, there is a Gretchen that we sometimes get confused on when I'm checking out. So we always make sure that we have the last two of their card number on there so that they can pull it up and say, oh, this card number doesn't match. Then
I think everybody should have an alias, especially with open hold shelf. I don't know whether that's possible in Koha, probably is, but there should be, even, pardon? Username,
the username field.
Yeah. I don't know why more libraries are not doing that, because personally, if there's a volunteer even checking in a hold and putting the slip in, I don't want my neighbor to know if I've requested a book on divorce or something. Not that I have, but I don't think this privacy is taken seriously enough by libraries. But
well, I think it is in a lot of respects. We started out as volunteer library, but our volunteers are all background checked, and so they have to go through that background check. They are trained on privacy. And I have what I call my library face that I pull out every so often if they don't do what they're supposed to do. But the two volunteers that I have doing this, I trust implicitly. Like I said, she pulls the holds. She does nothing else other than check them in and shelf. She knows about privacy issues. I've got one gal who worked in a bank. She understands complete privacy issues. The other one is my husband. He's a voluntold. And so so he comes in and helps us out, for like our Halloween party and stuff. And he checks in while we're doing the Halloween party, and that he's continually checking in or answering the phone for us. And he understands privacy. He too worked in a bank, and so he understands privacy.
Yeah.
He also knows that, I've told him, I say, I can't tell you something because it's private, and so he understands that if I can't tell him something, he doesn't question me for it. He doesn't run out and tell people, oh, I triggered a hold for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think
I'm sure,
it's a matter of training. It's a matter of training.
Yeah, I will say our municipal libraries, we have municipal libraries and what we call association libraries that have to raise their own funds. But I would think the municipal libraries probably have to do all of that background check on volunteers, but I don't know about the others.
Right. But I think it's a matter of training, and that you have to insist that they, they have to respect that privacy, and they have to understand that. And if they can't, then, I've had a few staff members who, they know the patrons so well, and they're like, oh, well, so-and-so has it on hold. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. You can't tell them who has it on hold, and they'll say, oh, does my friend so-and-so have it on hold? And they start to say, oh, yes. No,
it's human nature. So it's human nature. Yeah,
it is. It is. So, it's a training issue. I think it's just I don't know that they understand privacy. And I know that we have a lot of patrons who get a little cranky that we can't keep their reading history, or we can't tell them what their spouse has checked out, or
people want the convenience of that. So it's hard for library staff to kind of, there's a fine line there. I understand that. Yeah. But yeah, it's just, and we're a small library, so our training isn't too much of an issue, and and our volunteers are great. Like I said, they're background checked, they're well trained by our volunteer coordinator, and then they work with the face. My nephew calls it his ant face, and when he pulls out the ant face, he's in big trouble. So Chanel, did that answer your question? We got a little off track, but
yeah, well, yeah, it sounds like what we envisioned probably isn't possible.
Yeah, so because like I said, our generic, we have one generic login. It's LL Circ for my library circulation. That's actually my circulation card that is a in-house technical services card, and they just sign in as the Circ user. And excuse me, and they just check in and trigger the holds with that. And then my husband does do the checkout and answer the phone and renew, but that's about all he does. He doesn't do new cards or anything like that, but he helps us during our special events, our Halloween party, and our summer reading, and that where staff is busy, he's able to come in and kind of help us out.
In theory, you could use the self-check module as an alternative. I mean, you'd have your volunteers checking in the staff client, but if you wanted to use the self-check to check things out, then it's just the patron putting in their card number and their barcodes. Doing it, so they're the only ones seeing it. But yeah, there's no way to have them logged into the staff client and able to check things out, because that you have to access the patron record to do that.
Yeah. Because you have to know you're checking out to the right patron, and that they have a clear account, and all that.
What's your timeline, Chanel? You probably talked about this at the beginning.
We're going live in June. I would really like to start the onboarding process now, but Bywater says not until January.
So January through June, you'll be fine.
We have a pretty complex system, so and I've written a lot of custom scripts that we need that functionality to somehow be recreated. Like, for example, we have 26 schools that we import the students from nightly. And I have a very large, couple of thousand lines of code that processes all of that and automatically pulls it into our database. So we need to recreate that stuff.
we did that for our college library. This was our first time doing it. And I think we had to ask Bywater, or ask the college based on information from Bywater support for smaller files. I can't remember the details, but I mean, maybe because you can write your own code, it'll be fine. But the larger batches kind of got hung up.
Uh-oh.
But you know, we didn't write special code for it. We were just relying on the generic how to do it type of thing. So you might just want to check with Bywater about that.
Oh yeah, I definitely will be. It's just I'd like to be writing that code now instead of January.
I will tell you, when we switched over to Koha, it was not as seamless for us as it was for Idaho. They actually, I think they used Circ Dynix, and they actually had a nice turnover. We used TLC, and things actually broke, and we struggled. I was cranky for several months because information wasn't there, or it was duplicated, or we had all sorts of issues. Like I said, the Bywater was great. They worked with us. We worked with the tech team at Coeur d'Alene, and we got everything straightened out. And now it's been just smooth. Every upgrade going forth has been, you know, this last one was probably the best, but we did, you know, so make sure your information transfers over properly. But I think you'll be okay with Circ Dynix. Like I said, Coeur d'Alene just real smooth. But ours, I'm not sure what the issue was. I actually happened to be out of town when we transitioned over. It was an unexpected out of town, and all I know is I came back and they said something broke. And I'm sure it was the software we were using at that time that switching it over was not real easy. But we're cruising along now without any issues. In fact, this is probably the first upgrade we've had that doesn't make me cranky.
We did a huge amount, the catalogers did a huge amount of cleanup before we migrated to get our data in the best possible shape.
And we did the same with our patrons. We updated, you know, we went through, and anybody who hadn't used their information in, you know, a couple of years. I think for us, the big transition over from TLC to Koha is we lost fine information. At that time, we don't charge overdues. We did at that time. We charge lost and damaged, but when it transferred over, it just said fine, and we didn't know what that was. And I have patrons that go to collection. Since I'm a municipal library, I send them to a collection agency, and it didn't transfer the fine information well. I can't remember. I don't think Idaho had the same problem, but ours just transferred over and just said fine, and would tell you the amount. But it didn't tell you, was it a lost book? Was it a damaged item? Was it an overdue fine? What was that fine? And it took us a long time to get that kind of straightened out and figured out with that. So, you know, that's where our biggest issue ran into. But other than that, I mean, it was really seamless. It just, we did bump into those things. But I think the Circ one was much easier than the TLC.
One thing we did, I think we were the first to do it with Bywater. That sounds boastful. I don't mean it to be, but the reading history, first of all, Bywater said, no, we can't import that. But they were actually able to do that for us, the reading history we're all public libraries except for one college library. So in hindsight, we had said on our website, the reading history will import. It took, I think it crashed on the person for Bywater who was doing it a couple of times. So she had to redo it a few times, but they were very patient with us about that whole thing, and because we were happy to get the reading history over. But one thing that didn't import, and we wished we had been more proactive about asking the libraries to make it quite clear to patrons was patron lists did not import, which we knew in advance, and we thought we had given enough notice about that, but there was still, you know, months later, patrons were giving Circ staff a hard time about that. So we would have emphasized that more and emphasized our libraries to post more information about that. Another thing we did, which was useful, we kept the old record numbers in a special field for our holdings or item records, the barcoded item records. We kept the old Sierra number in some field or other. And that was good as a reference point for things that we found didn't migrate properly. But for the most part, Bywater did a fantastic job with us on supporting the migration. It was over a weekend. But yeah, we found it useful to keep the old record number.
We don't keep the reading history, so I can't attest to that. But for privacy, we don't keep that. But yeah, Bywater was great. Like I said, they got everything fixed, but it was that little bit of a transition time. So just make sure your information transfers all properly and correctly. We had some finds or some addresses that popped over into our messages field. So we just had to go back and, you know, clean up our messages or clean up the messages and get the addresses, make sure that they were correctly populated. You know, but, and remember too, this was a while back. They've really done such a great job going forth of getting things much better. So there hasn't been any issues that I've heard from people. So
you want my main complaint about migrations?
Yeah.
So we migrate a library every once in a while, and like every year or two, and it's turned into, oh, Jason knows what he's doing. So don't let them do that to you. make sure that, like, if you have questions, if you're not sure about something, you're nailing it down. But also I enjoy that freedom that they give me, because I know what I need for my system. I know how I need to slot that data into Koha at this point. So they'll work with you. Like,
they will. They will
be involved with the process, and you'll get what you need.
Yeah. And then if you find that you don't have everything you need, just contact them again, because they're great about, you know, getting you what you need. And come to the conference next year, because Bywater's there.
Yeah,
and we're all
I actually virtually attended this year, but I'm hoping to attend in person next year.
Yeah. So we don't know where it's going to be yet, but come and join us, because we're, you know, that's the best part, is your networking, so we can all talk and, you know, figure out things. And so
Now, Chanel, I know they're scheduling an upgrade in January. Do you know if you're coming on before or after the upgrade, or are they going to do it at the same time?
Well, sometime in January is when we'll get our first data load, and then we'll get another data load in like March or something, and then the final one in June. So I would hope we would end up on the. I'm very much a proponent of upgrading immediately, so I would hope to be on the latest version.
yeah. So. Okay, so we are at an hour. Anybody else have any questions?
Thank you, everyone, for your input.
You're welcome. And please feel free to contact us, you know, if you have any questions, and we'll be back here next month. Lauren will be back. She's the Circ leader, or the SIG leader for our group. She was just at a meeting today, so she'll be back. So, but do feel free to contact us if you have any questions.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll see ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.